with Jon Impemba and James Grande.
What is going on, everybody? Jon Impemba with James Grande. Welcome to the Fantasy Time NBA DFS Playbook Show. We got 6 games here on a Monday. James, you were on the playbook today. We fortunately got some early news this afternoon with Jason Tatum being ruled out, Sam Hauser being ruled out, Kristaps Porzingis being ruled in for the Celtics in that awesome matchup between the Indiana Pacers here for tonight. And then, of course, we did the pre-show this morning. We already had the news on guys like Damian Lillard being ruled out here. So some news we've gotten. I know some news we're certainly still waiting on here. How's your first look at the play today?
Much of what we kind of anticipated, I would say, especially with Milwaukee, no surprise to see the likes of Middleton, Jackson, Giannis kind of check in at the top of ownership and just stay there, even with the Boston news. Like, that has not changed. Like, I figured Sam Hauser being ruled out would make a pretty big dent in what the Boston ownership would be, but it hasn't. Not even that other guy that was ruled out for Boston has mattered, but like, he doesn't matter anyway. It's Hauser that mattered. No, oh yeah, that guy, right? The guy that might move the needle a little bit. But yeah, I mean,
Svi Mykhailiuk? No,
I don't even want to do this show anymore.
No, okay.
I mean,
sorry. Had to fit it in.
No, it's okay. I mean, you deal with me every day, so it's okay. You have to get your Svi jabs in there. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting slate. That Boston game, open at 243.5. Tatum gets ruled out, sprung up to 247.5. Like, people are like, oh, well, less defense will be played. Maybe more competitive game than it was the other day. So that's definitely interesting because, Indiana does have an historic offense. A year after we saw an historic offense, Sacramento. Yeah. Indiana's on pace to break their record. Now we get a less than 100% Boston team. We got the Levine downgrade midday. That was, potentially something that we have to look at. Mm-hmm. So, no Kawhi Leonard on the injury report. Kevin Durant is probable. So there's been a lot of news that has come out that I think you and I both kind of expected. Like, Kawhi's been playing back-to-backs. That's not necessarily a surprise. It's always something, of course, that game's 2.5 hours, and that's a whole nother debate. We've been getting this late game removed for the last 2 weeks. Right. And now it's 2.5 hours after the 8 p.m. slot. And they're like, you know what? Let's keep the two teams on a back-to-back on the slate. Let's do that. Teams that have had injury history, that have had guys rested. So it's all in all interesting slate, fun slate to get into with, again.
Yeah. We just got the latest ownership update. We'll have that working on throughout the day, like 2 minutes ago here. But I do want to get your initial thoughts on the fact that both SGA and Giannis are checking in around 25%. We figured Giannis would have been the king of the castle here. Seems like people are split on which top star they're finding themselves spending up for today.
Yeah, and I think you can play them both. Is it comfortable? I don't know. You're obviously playing Milwaukee value with them. Mm-hmm. But when you look at the Milwaukee ownership in general, I mean, 3 guys under $4,000 are 20% or more. Right. So there's going to be situations where you can lock in maybe 130 points to your lineup if Washington can keep that game competitive and move on from there and hopefully get enough from everyone else. Right. So it is interesting. I don't put it past people getting the SGA, though, because when you look at the totality of the slate, OKC has arguably the best matchup on the board. Sure. They're facing the team that's played at the highest pace this year and the team that's ranked last in defense. Like, if it's not Boston, who everyone is pegging or maybe thinking like, well, they have the best matchup, it's actually OKC. And you and I have talked about it. Like, they're on a 2-game losing streak. Yep. This is the 3rd straight game on the road. Maybe Washington can keep it close. DeLon Wright was taken off the injury report. Landry Shamet was taken off the injury report. Washington is like kind of at full strength. Not that that has mattered much for Washington this year, but for what that's worth, they are full strength, and OKC's on the 3rd straight road game. So in a competitive game, if SGA plays is active, I mean, dude, he scored 30 actual in 9 of his last 10, and in
Mhm.
those 9 games, he has 50 plus fantasy points.
Right.
And in all of those, I mean, the only game he didn't, one kind of blip in the radar against Brooklyn, and that's okay for a guy who's averaging 31, 6, 6, and 2. So yeah, I definitely edge it to Giannis. We talked about it, 1.7 fantasy points per minute on the year, without Dame Lillard, but
Mhm.
I can't fault anyone for getting to SGA if that's where your lineups take you.
Yeah, no, and for sure not. I think for us though, it was to me at least the way we discussed it this morning. We thought like no doubt about it, no Dame Lillard, 1.7 fantasy points per minute, and the 38% usage rate, and it was Giannis, knowing the value that was going to be there. Like you said, people certainly can get to both of those plays here tonight if you want to go stars and scrubs. It's certainly a way to go. Where does like Halliburton check in for you though when it comes to that mix? I mean, 44 fantasy points last time out against Boston. We know what his ceiling's been, and yet he's cheaper than the other two guys, but he's not checking in with like any of the rostership here this evening.
I mean, he very easily has the hardest matchup of the three, facing Derek White, facing Drew Holiday. Like he'll see both those guys. Um, but like I wrote in the playbook, and like I said yesterday, it's great to see on a night that Halliburton goes 5 of 17 from the floor and doesn't have double-digit assists, he still gets you 44 fantasy points because what was lagging earlier in the year isn't anymore. He's rebounding the basketball. He's in the passing lanes. He's blocking a lot of shots lately too. Like, are these sustainable numbers? We haven't really seen it. Like early in the year, we didn't really see it. So like TBD on that. But if it's gonna be this pretty consistent of late, and basically all the categories, if those happen consistently and the assists and the points like all mesh, I mean that's when you're getting the ceiling Halliburton
Right.
game, 70, 80
I,
fantasy.
I feel like if I'm going the double spend today, I'd rather take Halliburton and Giannis and get 10% Halliburton than SGA just to be different, right? Just for a little
Yep.
contrarian play. Like you're going to play Giannis no matter what. That's fine. But for on DraftKings for just $200 less, you're getting a guy with 50% less rostership that has the same ceiling, really. I mean, the way they've been playing lately. I understand the whole matchup thing, but that's obviously why the more of the rostership's going the SGA way here. But if we have Halliburton checking in around 10% and SGA checking in at 26, I think in tournaments I'd rather go the Halliburton route and look to get the 50 fantasy points there, for my tournament perspective. Just clicking on LaMelo, he's not back for this game, but full practice on Sunday.
Yep.
So
Oh,
the days are coming for LaMelo Ball, which is good because you and I obviously big fans of LaMelo Ball. He's a fun player, good for the league to have him healthy and on the floor. He's just had some really tough luck injuries over the course of his
ankle like someone we know who may be the best, may or may not be the best shooter we've ever seen, right?
That's early
Early in
Steph
their
Curry,
career.
right? Like, cause couldn't get over the sprained ankles there. Booker Harden at $8,700 could be in a full matchup there with both squads healthy. It could be a fun playoff preview in the Western Conference here tonight. You got Rozier, Van Vliet. What are we doing in the mid-tier range here?
I like the Clippers Phoenix game. I just haven't necessarily prioritized it today. And I think that, kind of is what the industry is feeling as well. There's not really anyone in that game that's checking in with any ownership. And I understand it because you look at Boston, Indiana, with a star out of the game, potential for Indiana to be without a bunch of different pieces. You look at Utah, Milwaukee. We know Lillard, we know Campaign, both out. Like there's super chalk value in that game. OKC, Washington. OKC is in a tremendous spot, and I'm okay getting to those guys. Like we know Booker has a ceiling, hasn't really shown it lately,
Right.
but 9,300 is a good price for him. James Harden coming off a really tough game yesterday, but 40 minutes is amazing to see.
Yeah, they're all playing, which I think is interesting because they all played a
Yeah,
whole lot of minutes against the Lakers. So
all played a whole bunch of minutes. And it's just one of those things where this year teams are not resting players as much. And I think, it hasn't hurt anybody. Like no one's getting hurt more because they're playing more. Like, so I'm okay getting to Booker, Harden, just not priorities for me.
Sure.
Kind of feel the same about Rozier and Van Vliet. I will say when it comes to Terry Rozier, he is a little bit intriguing if Alex Caruso doesn't play again because he avoids that obvious matchup,
Right.
which is tough. That's the assignment he's obviously going to draw. And like Charlotte's also super shorthanded. PJ Washington's out today, which he only played 6 minutes last game. Cody Martin was a midday downgrade. They played Cody Martin 35 minutes last game. Like, just Charlotte could not be more depleted if they tried.
Right.
So I would be okay getting to Terry Rozier. Same thing with Van Vliet. Both guys just have really high ceilings in tournaments, but like that whole tier just kind of not a priority for me. All like viable tournament options.
Most likely, I imagine then you're getting to some of the next guys here. Beal at 76, White at 74, White at 72. Derek and Kobe there?
Derek for sure. Kobe obviously TBD. Like I'm not against.
He's actually had two of his better games of late, surprisingly.
He has.
Even with Levine back, Vucevic back.
Well, they've only been back for one. They came back for the Charlotte game. And you have to also factor in like both those guys were limited and came off the bench. So what happens when both those guys, like Levine played 30 minutes, so not like so much of a limit. But Vooch was on a hard cap. They kept him at that 25. Assuming that goes up 27, 28, 29, 30, somewhere in that range.
But he was playing well with Vucevic. He was playing good with. It's more so the Levine downgrade because he was playing well with Vucevic and DeRozan prior to this.
Yeah, he also like. I'm just saying if they're fully healthy, like the Kobe White thing, like if Levine's in, I'm not really getting to a 72.
Well, this is more so on the midday downgrade on Levine here, right? So
sure, and there's multiple injuries on Levine. He's dealing with two separate injuries. So like, yeah, if Levine is ruled out, then I'm interested in Kobe White. Because
his price tag got up over 8K for a period. He's in a high, and now he's back down to the low sevens. Last time he was 7,200 was early December. I mean, since the price is coming down because those guys came back, but now one of them's out, potentially out. So.
Potentially out, yeah. That's the caveat. If Levine's in, I probably have little to no interest because I would rather just play the Boston guys. Because either way, I think I'd rather play the Boston guys. I know the Derek White minutes have been like pretty brutal of late. The foul trouble in Indiana stunk. The blowout in Utah stunk, obviously, for like those that are rostering him. But
he got hurt in the Thunder game, if I remember correctly.
Got hurt. That's the Stitches. Right? Yeah, that was the Stitches game. Got hurt in the Thunder game, and like
blowout versus San Antonio. Like
it's just been bad luck. And you look at the totality of the numbers without Jason Tatum this year. 8.4% usage bump is like far and away like 2.5 to 3x bigger than anybody else on the team. And it's the bump is to a 27.9% usage rate, which is an elite number. And so is the 1.26 fantasy points per minute that Derek White has when there's no Jason Tatum. And he's talked about it like there's games with Tatum and Brown where he's like, yeah, I'm cool with not touching the ball for 10 straight possessions because like they have scored 10 straight possessions. It's like, well, now you've removed Tatum. Derek White's like, hey, by the way, shooting 40% from three this year. Right. Don't mind if I do. So
10 threes coming tonight, you think?
Yeah, I mean 10 threes in a game that's obviously a massive pace-up spot for Derek White and the Celtics. So I love Derek White. Drew Holiday in the same regard without Tatum over a fantasy point per minute.
Yeah.
And, both these guys you could play at shooting guard. If you wanted to play them both, hey, guess what? You can, because you could just plug them point guard, shooting guard, and move on. So
or Drew Holiday, like my perception of him from fantasy this year, he hasn't really been that good. Like from a DFS perspective, he's had moments, but if you just kind of look at his numbers across the board, like all solid, right? 80% from the free throw line, 45% from the field, 41% from three. It just obviously he's the fifth guy in that offense. Averaging 13, 6, and 5 basically with a steal and a block per game, nearly as a guard. And it's just like, I'll never play Drew Holiday over 6K because like he's never paying that price tag off. It's kind of funny that they have consistently sort of priced him in this like high to mid 6K area, and he really hasn't been worth it. And we'll talk about Jalen Brown in a moment because I know very popular play on Twitter today. Everybody's talking about Jalen Brown for obvious reasons. Again, no Jason Tatum. Going down below to the 6K range, though, you have, which Utah guard are we buying into here today? You have Sexton. Obviously, Keontae George is playing a little bit of minutes now, and then Jordan Clarkson, the shooting guard. But, all three of those guys are going to be in a rotation tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sexton's price on DraftKings is far more appealing than it is on FanDuel. It's like over 7K on FanDuel, which no thanks, because we've kind of talked about it. Like, he had a great game the other day against Philly and only played 27 minutes because that's Will Hardy. There's also, like, again, I'm not saying Sexton couldn't be a part of their plans, but like Keontae George was their first round pick and is clearly took over as a starting point guard, started to ascend and then got hurt. And that's always going to be Sexton's like kind of Achilles heel on this team. So
we're
I like
a month
him.
away from the NBA trade deadline. So
dude,
moves are happening soon.
Honestly, like Sexton playing this well is not bad for Utah because it's just elevating potential trade possibilities.
Probably get a first round pick for him at this point, right? Like,
yeah. Imagine having a guy who once averaged 23 points a game coming off your bench for a contender or something, right? So I like Sexton on DraftKings more than I do on FanDuel. I think there is kind of a ceiling with minutes because the guard room is so just deep. I mean, even in a game the other day where they went to double overtime, he played 30 minutes. He had 25 actual points and could only play 30 minutes because they just have so many guards. And obviously Jordan Clarkson played 40 and had 40 actual. So I like Sexton in this tier. I think that's it though, John. Like there's not like a lot of to your question in totality, Clarkson's my favorite Utah guard.
Sure.
That's no interest in Keontae George until we see him get back to like the minutes that and there was an article written about him, how that he gave an interview, like basically saying he's struggling because he's back to like going off the bench. And that's obviously like mentally challenging for a 19, 20-year-old kid. Now he's like starting, now he's not, now he's like trying to figure it out again. So staying away from George. There was the midday Lowry pop on the injury report, and it's probable. So like not saying that he's not going to play, that obviously the expectation is he's probably going to play. But the Miami, those Miami guys are never like too far away from being randomly ruled out, right? So definitely something to monitor there.
What do you make of the ownership coming in on Peyton Pritchard?
It makes sense because we talk about this with Boston all the time. Regardless of who's in, they just don't play a deep rotation. It's like Pritchard's been in the rotation, right? This is also the cheapest he's been in a little bit. Like he's been up to like high fives or high fours. And I know 43 he was last game, but they were fully healthy. Yeah. This is like the lowest his price has been when there's been somebody out.
He's getting 22%, which is like the 6th or 7th highest rostered play.
Well, so here's their rotation, right? You said it. You messaged me earlier. Double big. They're going to do the double big in all likelihood.
Yep.
It's been the trend. Yeah, it's been the trend. So then there's no Hauser, which has always been the wrinkle. What's your bench rotation? It's if Missoula just continues to be Missoula and play 7.5 guys, probably maybe 8. Mm-hmm. Cornette's your backup center.
Yep.
Pritchard's your backup guard, and O'Shea Brissett is your backup forward. Like that's the whole rotation.
Probably, yeah.
Because there's obviously positional flexibility with basically every Boston starter. Derek White can play both guard spots. Drew Holiday can play both, and Drew Holiday can guard all 5 spots.
Sure.
Brown can guard 4 spots. I mean, Horford can guard 3 spots. Like they don't necessarily need to run a deep rotation because of who they have on the, like you said, Drew Holiday's their 5th best player. Like it's not fair, but it's just the reality. So like I get it. I get the Pritchard ownership. I haven't found myself getting there or the need to, because like if I'm punting a point guard / small forward option, it's Andre Jackson, who I fully expect to start tonight at $3,100. So in those situations, I'd rather save $1,200. Not saying Jackson has been a better fantasy player, because he hasn't. But in the 2 games that Andre Jackson has been extended, 26, 36 minutes, he's given us 22 fantasy points.
Right.
If that's what we get from Andre Jackson at 3,100, it's a win, right? Like you get 22 fantasy points, it's a win. So I think Andre Jackson gets to start. I think he's the one extended. He has elite positional eligibility, obviously point guard, small forward. So that's the direction I would go. I'm okay if someone lands on Pritchard, because again, he's going to be one of the 8 guys Boston plays. And what if Derek White gets in foul trouble again, right? What if Drew Holiday gets in foul trouble because he's trying to guard Tyrese Halliburton? Like those are all obviously possibilities, and Pritchard obviously benefits from that. So big news. So 1, Cody Martin's ruled out.
Yeah.
2, everyone's playing for Indiana.
Yeah.
That is terrible news, because
Jackson, Nembhard, and Bruce Brown all in.
They're not. Now it's just Halliburton and crew, because you have no idea who's playing for Indiana at all. They're going to start Bruce Brown. He'll play high 20s, low 30s minutes. They're going to start Halliburton. They're going to start Turner. They probably start Smith. But good luck trying to figure out who's actually getting definitive run.
Yeah.
And if you're gonna take a gander and take a guess, I salute you.
Yeah, McGowan's back in the starting lineup here for the Hornets.
They have to.
Yeah,
they're down Washington. Martin. They have no Bryce McGowan's today at $3,900 could very well play 28 to 30 minutes.
Billion minutes.
Now, they could always go the route of Rozier at the 2.
Mm-hmm.
That's always and that's what the kind of scary part about like using someone McGowan's would be, because they don't need to use Rozier. They could play Ish Smith or Nick Smith, right, as like their point guards, and so that would be my one worry about McGowan's. But Miller's minutes solidified. Bridges' minutes are just locked and loaded. Richard's minutes.
I grabbed some Bridges and Rozier in the Underdog Battle Royals today. So feeling a little better about those short rotations. I haven't acknowledged you guys yet. What's up to Prince? Happy to have you in chat already. Air Jordan, thank you. Twitch King popping in. And we got Albert in the chat here today. If you guys got any questions, feel free to throw them our way. Happy to talk today's slate with all of you guys. Shooting guard position here. Top booker already. We got Paul George at $8,400. Jalen Brown's $82. Hero $7,900. And then Chris Middleton, of course, $7K is your highest rostered player on the slate.
Yeah, I was really surprised to not see Boston getting ownership earlier in the day, and that's changed from then till now. Yeah,
they're getting a little bit more. Porzingis getting 22, Brown getting 20, but like that's it. Like they're not the 40+%,
I love Jalen Brown tonight. What's up, brother? I love Jalen Brown tonight. 1.3 fantasy points per minute, essentially, without Jason Tatum this year.
I just dropped 31 actual with Tatum playing. So
31 actual with Tatum. 32% usage rate without Tatum. It's a 3.1% usage bump. Like, there's nothing not to like. Elite position eligibility. Great matchup. I mean, there's nothing. He's going to play 40 minutes.
Now, there's no Porzingis or Tatum in this game against Toronto, but he went for 31, 10, and 6 in that game.
He's very good.
So he can be the highest paid player in the NBA. Like he can play like it. He can play like it.
Isn't that always just bizarre? Like you just think back to this offseason and Jalen Brown is the highest paid player in the NBA. Not like
paid player in the NBA.
And then like at times he's the 3rd to 4th best player on the Celtics on a daily basis.
Yep.
No, in no wrong of his own. Yeah. Just on the team that he's on.
If you were drafting the Boston Celtics, you're taking him 3rd. You're taking Porzingis over him.
I'm taking a fourth.
You're taking Derek White. You're taking Derek White.
You know my feelings on Derek. Like,
dude, are you taking Derek White too? Are you taking Derek White too?
Dude, if I'm building a team, I might listen. Depending on where I got to go with Tatum in the draft and where I would take Derek White in the draft, there might be better value on old bald buddy over there.
Sure.
I might be taking Derek White.
That's fair. So anyways, I agree. Jaylen Brown's great. Paul George, a lot of minutes, looked good, 44 fantasy points. Gets the Phoenix matchup here, but obviously no one's going there because they're going Brown. Kind of feel the same thing about Hero. Like, I know it wasn't a great game for Hero against Phoenix, but still love the minutes. Got Houston at home here. The price tag at 7,900, so one of the cheapest tags we've got on Hero this season. And then, as I mentioned, Middleton's like 7K tonight. A lot of people are plugging here.
Yeah, it's easy. I mean, massive usage bump. You mentioned it on the show last night. He gets the biggest usage bump on the team, like significantly more than anyone else. More than Giannis, more than anyone else you can imagine. The minutes are great. The matchup's great. I suspect he's just their point guard tonight. Like, they're down their 2 starting point guards. You don't put Malik Beasley on the ball. Him and Giannis, the whole offense will just flow through them, both as the in-hub situation. So Middleton's an easy plug for me. I would say, like Hero is tournament play, Beal tournament play. They're both like, if you land on them, fine. Hero's just, I would say, really tough to get to just in the matchup, considering everything around him too. And then you have Clarkson at 6,100. It's just, dude.
No Payne, no Lillard, obviously. So the top 2 backup, starting and backup point guards for the Bucks are out of this one. Do you think the defense changes at all for Milwaukee? I mean, we've been attacking guards because of how bad Lillard is. Does like Jackson play tougher defense? Do they have anybody to play? Like
he does. But like, this guy has had a 31% usage rate in like 7 of his last 8 games.
Sure.
And he, as we mentioned, other than that one, I mean, he was 1 for 7 against Boston. He has been consistently one of like their 3 guys getting minutes, and Utah's winning a lot of games. So like, they've been giving Markkanen more run and Clarkson more run. When they were playing 10 guys, that wasn't the case. It's hard for me to get away from Clarkson, given the usage rates and given the upside and given the minutes. And yeah, there's still Malik Beasley though. There's still Pat Connaughton, who's going to get big minutes, and Pat Connaughton has been really not himself this year, not shooting well, not playing great defense. Beauchamp's still young and decent defender, like a lengthy defender. I just don't think it's going to matter for Clark. It's not like there would never be a scenario where head coach Adrian Griffin was like, "Hey Dame, you're guarding Jordan Clarkson tonight."
Sure.
And Dame would be like, "I didn't come here to guard Jordan Clarkson.
Yeah,
I got out of the West. I didn't have to guard Jordan Clarkson then either." Like that's not so. And Campaign, kind of the same thing. Like Campaign, he even like kind of fell out of the rotation a little bit.
Sure.
So I don't think it's going to matter. $6,100 for Clarkson. The only thing that has dinged Clarkson a little bit here is that he was point guard, shooting guard. Now he's only shooting guard.
Can't go Matherin anymore.
No, can't go any. Dude, you can't go any pacer. They're all.
So we are getting a whole bunch of Bulls news here. Caruso listed available to play. Vucevic available to play. Patrick Williams available to play.
So we're gonna get still a game time decision on Levine, and we're gonna get like probably at some point like we'll go through pregame warm up. Let's see if we have anything from any beat writers. I don't see anything on Levine.
I imagine it'll come at some point here.
I don't see anything yet.
They did just give us Caleb Martin out, so I think we knew that one was coming anyways.
Both Martins.
Yeah, both Martins. So they can't jersey swap today.
No jersey swap. No.
Obviously, again, as mentioned, with all the Pacers guys in, we can't go Matherin. We've talked Sexton. Do you have any Jordan Poole interest here today? I mean, if this game is going to be competitive, he's got to do something, right? $56. Such crazy where he was at the beginning of the year, man.
I do not. Unfortunately.
Norm 54.
No, the minutes are kind of down. Terrence Mann's playing really like kind of making shots.
Sure.
And they're like kind of just chopping time. And
do you got any value shooting guards then?
I mean, the question is going to be like Beauchamp
Sure.
here at 3,700. A lot of people getting there. We saw him kind of play over Connaughton and over Beasley. And that's another question. Like a lot of people are getting to Malik Beasley here. And I've kind of not liked the minutes lately. He's kind of been losing time to begin with.
LaVine will play.
It's really tough to like any of the Bulls.
So
they are just so healthy. That's such a healthy team.
We don't know how many minutes he will play, but he will play.
Sure. He played 30 last game, so assuming you could probably pencil him in at 30, and if we hear anything different, we go from there. But I prefer the savings on Beauchamp going. But Beasley's $900 more with worse eligibility. Maybe he does play because he's extended here, but
okay. Any other ones?
No, nothing else.
Okay.
Nothing. Literally nothing. Nothing.
Small forward. Small forward. Kawhi's 9K. Small forward, power forward eligible. A lot of guys we've discussed. Lauri Markkanen at 81. You did have some Lauri interest this morning. Has that wavered at all?
No, I mean, you can always play him in tournaments. I think Markkanen is a tremendous tournament play. He is very volatile when his shot's not falling because he's very scoring and rebounding dependent. And we don't see a lot of games with high totals of assists or steals or blocks. He is very limited to the scoring and the rebounding. But as we saw last game, 33 and 13, 56 fantasy points. So he's gone for 53 times in his last 7 games. So if you think that this game stays competitive, Markkanen obviously is going to play a big role in that.
LaVine and Vucevic will see increased minutes tonight.
I mean, again, LaVine played 30. So that's low to mid 30s, assuming, and Vooch probably gets up to 30. It's, again, just makes it, not that the Bulls are like unappealing because they're all priced pretty fairly. Like Vooch at 75 is a pretty good price. And you've talked about DeRozan under 8K. And
now I just wonder if Charlotte can be able to even hang in this game, right? Like, it was questionable. It was touch and go to begin with, right? Like,
well, the Bulls are,
but
they might have been playing better without. Play better without him. You're not wrong in that line of thinking because Charlotte is just so brutally banged up. Did we just get more news?
Cade Cunningham's not playing tomorrow. Big sad. I heard it today.
Oh, that's sad.
I mean, right now Charlotte's is getting 6.5 at home. I would bet that moves another point or so with the news we're getting right now. So
getting 6.5, they're down. LaMelo, Hayward, Williams, Washington, Martin. They're down 5 of their top
8.
Literally, Rozier, Bridges, 5 of their top 9. Yep.
Beantown haven't hit power forward yet, but no, there is no price too high for Giannis tonight for us. We'll touch that in a moment. And Cracker, I'm not getting to Svi. I was looking at the last 2 games where Tatum didn't play. Svi did play 15 minutes and 16 minutes in those 2 games. One was against Toronto. The other one was in the blowout win against the Kings. He could very well be the backup to Jaylen Brown tonight. But again, like Brown's going to play 40 minutes. So what does the backup to Jaylen Brown look like? It's probably 15 minutes here. No minutes restrictions for Kristaps Porzingis tonight per Joe Mazzulla. So again, he just got poked in the eye or something like that the other day. So it wasn't really it
was bad. Yeah, he couldn't even open it.
Yeah, but he's going to go here. So yeah, Svi, Cracker, we're not going to go to Svi tonight. It's just too much uncertainty there with what his role is going to be. Again, unless the starting lineup comes out and like O'Shea Brissett is starting at power forward tonight, then maybe because that means Al Horford's your backup 5 and they need a backup swingman. Then maybe Mykhailiuk is that guy. But if they go double big, it feels more likely that Brissett's the backup for there. So. DeRozan, obviously, I'm sure we were playing DeRozan like when everybody was healthy, we were playing DeRozan under 8K. So like, I still feel like DeRozan's okay, but I just worry about that matchup there for him. So
I feel like I've been pretty like especially when like at the right before the latest injuries, I just said like you could play the lowest owned of the bunch and
Sure.
take a shot. But it's very hard. It's a carousel. It's very hard to predict who's going to be the guy every night to go off between the
Right.
three.
The cover of our show today is Jalen Williams.
Yeah, I mean, I love OKC. It's hard to, and I think that's the allure with SGA, where like, dude, this matchup is it's just very hard to ignore, right? Like, it has a 246 implied point total against the team that is playing at the second fastest rate over the last 15 games, fastest on the year, and they are the 28th ranked defense over the last 15 games, worst on the year. Like, there is part of me that thinks they can keep it competitive because this stretch that OKC has hit, where like they've played 3 road games in a row after an emotional taxing win against Boston, where they almost kind of blew it, where Boston was maybe Kristaps Porzingis toe away from, tying the game or getting a possession to tie the game.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I like Jalen Williams. We didn't really talk about Giddey much. I like Giddey in his 1.1 fantasy points per minute this year. Jalen Williams is actually 4th, but the minutes are really encouraging for Jalen Williams, something that I've kind of worried about in the past, where like Dagnall limits guys and doesn't extend anyone but SGA, but 35 and 36 minutes the last 2 games, and he's responded with 35 and 41 fantasy points. It's just a safe play. Now, he's also a super contrarian pivot off Middleton, if you want to do that in that regard as well. Like, Middleton is obviously, I think Middleton's the better play, right? Like, undoubtedly the better play. There's
no Willard, the assists are going to be there. Scoring's going to have an opportunity to be there for him tonight. So I'm with you. I think Middleton's the better play for sure.
But if you want to be contrarian, right? Jalen. There's always, I mean, dude, again, one guy has the better matchup, and the other guy has 60% of the field playing him, right? So just throwing that out there.
Yeah, no doubt. Are we going under there? Anybody here? I mean, Miller 63 probably locked into 38 minutes. Grayson Allen's gonna play a bunch of minutes. Jaquez is gonna play a bunch of minutes. Any interest in that group?
I am interested that they're playing minutes. I mean, but it's like, we haven't seen the ceiling out of Miller at this price, right? There just has not been a ceiling. I would say we have seen a higher ceiling from Jaquez because he has that 50-point fantasy game, but that was like a one-off more than it was like consistent.
The only guy that's done it twice, I think, is Grayson Allen.
And then Grayson Allen.
He's been in the full last 4 games. So,
and I will say, it's crazy, but like, now Eric Gordon's back. So does he take any hit? I don't know, because they're missing Bol. They're missing Nasir Little tonight. So like, Grayson Allen might just ho-hum, play 40 minutes.
I think he might just play 40 minutes.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's shooting 50% from 3. So like, what are they going to do? How can they take him off? They can't take him off.
He's their best swing. I mean,
yeah, they can't take him off.
Fontecchio down here at 5K feels pretty good.
Fontecchio is someone I'm getting to. The minutes have been super secure outside of that Boston blowout and Dallas blowout. Even in the Dallas game, he played 30 minutes because he was, started that game hitting all the shots.
Mm-hmm.
I think what makes Fontecchio really good is Utah using this starting lineup they're using. Chris Dunn can't shoot. Colin Sexton can't shoot. 2 guys that set people up and go to the rim. Like, you have then guys who are spacing the floor and Markkanen and Fontecchio. Fontecchio gets going early. Like, it's going to be a good game for him. I really do like the 5K price tag.
Yeah, agreed. If Brissett starts, would you give him a look at 3,400?
Yeah, I mean, he's interesting.
Is he interesting anyways, too? I mean, 21, 17, 20 minutes the last 3 games for him.
Yeah, and like, it's seemingly becoming like, it's apparent when there's pieces out, he's next man up. And that's why I like Two Crackers, to what your point about Cracker, like Two Cracker, he's not, like, Svia's not playing over O'Shea Brissett at this point. Like, O'Shea Brissett has clearly made his mark, and there's the Losmeister showing up with his revenge narrative talk. And we saw O'Shea Brissett for Indiana as like their 6'5" center. Him and Terry Taylor,
he had moments, man. He had moments.
He did.
Before.
he's a good fantasy point per minute guy. He's a good fantasy producer at times. Like, sure. You brought it up. Like, there is a world. Now, I do think they go double big because that's what Indiana's done too. Like Indiana's doing and that doesn't necessarily matter.
When we've seen Jalen Brown go out, right? They started Tatum at the 3. They moved Horford. Like we've seen them do the double big, but we haven't seen Tatum out yet. The 2 games Tatum's been out, one of and both Horford and Porzingis were also out. So we haven't seen them necessarily start that, but we've seen them would do it with Tatum out of the lineup. So I just imagine they would do this, or Brown rather. I would just imagine they do the same thing here.
Yeah, and Hauser's out, who's been the direct backup, like the direct plug, right, for Boston. Like anytime Tatum or Brown has been out, it's been like, you've asked me this stupid question about Sam Hauser, and every time I'm like, I don't want to play Sam Hauser today. And I'm thankful
hasn't been good at any of those times he started.
I'm thankful. I'm very thankful we don't have to worry about it today. How about that, John? Like, we don't have to worry about it.
He would have been locked in and playing 35 minutes tonight. So
at the cheapest price he's been all year.
Yeah, would have been a thing. All right, let's go to power forward so we can get to our guy Beantown's question. Though I answered it already. There is no price that is too expensive to me, at least tonight for Giannis. You can. Oh, now we got an update. Zach will be in a game time decision. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. 11-7 on DraftKings. He is 12-9, 12-8 on FanDuel. Perfectly fine. The man went for 75 fantasy points, 80 fantasy points the last 2 games. You can even add on a couple of points on that, probably over on FanDuel for the defensive stats. 1.71 fantasy points per minute this year without Damian Lillard on the floor, 38% usage rate. It is Utah, so even better matchup dealing with Fontecchio, John Collins, Kelly Olynyk, Walker Kessler, like whatever they're going to throw out there in the front court. The only man I've ever seen defend Giannis was Wemby, and he still dropped 80 in that game. Wemby flat out stuffed him. Never seen anybody do that to Giannis like that before.
It was his birthday. It was his birthday, though.
It's the birthday narrative. I don't think there's anybody on. I mean, the blocker can Blocker Kessler do that to Giannis here tonight? Feels like he's more likely to end up on a poster.
I mean, like he could get blocked. Like Kessler's a good rim, like good shot blocker, but it also he might get him once, and then Giannis might get him 17 straight. right? Like so, like even if Kessler does, like, oh, look at that block, kind of like the Wemby moment. It's like, oh, look at that block. Yeah. Wemby had 44. Like, good for Wemby. Or Giannis had 44. Like, good for Wemby. You know, like I'm happy he got him. It doesn't happen often, but also, it's just one of those scenarios where. Yeah, I mean the guy's had 80 fantasy points, and that's that's in his cards tonight. I think DraftKings missed this because we knew Lillard was going to be out yesterday. This feels like a miss on his price. It feels like a miss regardless because he was 12K 2 slates ago, and then went for 70, 80, and 75 back-to-back slates, and he's still 11-7. Like
right.
It feels like he should just put him at 12K or 12-2, 12-3 and make people think about it more, right? Like, because it's not hard if you play Giannis to get a comfortable lineup because there's value on his team everywhere you look.
Agreed. And it's even if there wasn't value on his team, like I think tonight we'd still probably be getting Giannis on the slate. So, just an elite matchup for him here. You got Durant, $9,700. Kawhi's at $9K. Any interest in that grouping? I keep on talking about Porzingis. Like that's $7,900 Porzingis is where I want to live here today.
Yeah, and he's the highest fantasy point per minute guy on their team without Jason Tatum this year. So I also am willing to go back to the Porzingis as well. I know, a couple of people have been burned by Kristaps Porzingis or, like, don't worry about an injury. He got injured. Maybe if he was at all not okay, he wouldn't be starting, wouldn't be playing, Mazzulla wouldn't come out and say there's no minutes for sure.
Yeah, no, he's good. He's good to go.
So yeah, I'm perfectly fine getting to the guy leading them in fantasy points per minute. The Crackerjack, Chris Dunn is definitely fine. But he's 5K. Like
he's getting like 22% on FanDuel tonight.
It's the steals. And Now, Chris Dunn is point guard, shooting guard. The Milwaukee stuff is obviously a way to get away from it. Andre Jackson, 3,900. Connaughton, 41. Malik Beasley, 44. Like, if you wanted to play any of them over Chris Dunn, like, that's fine. I don't also dislike Chris Dunn, especially on FanDuel. So
yeah. And Brandon, we were fine with Kobe White until we got the news that Levine and Vucevic are not only in but going to see more minutes tonight. So that's just going to obviously impact Kobe White here.
Now we don't know about Levine.
Well, I guess that's true. But the quote earlier was Donovan said he's going to play. So
I know it's so weird.
I don't know. I guess we have to wait on the Levine news. But Kobe White takes a hit if everybody's playing their full minutes. It's kind of where I'm at with that. Cam the Man wants to know Fontecchio, Collins, or James. Or is he saying James? Do we like Fontecchio, Collins? What's your? So there's no James playing. There's no LeBron tonight. So
I would say Fontecchio has a safer minutes.
Collins is getting some ownership on FanDuel tonight.
He's been super good the last few games, but like we know, if John Collins doesn't go 7 for 13, 5 for 8, 9 for 10 from the floor, John Collins might play 18 minutes tonight, right? Like there's a world where he is not on the floor for long. If you want to play John Collins, by all means, I'm gonna pivot to a lower on Fontecchio.
Yep. And then Faisal wants to know how many bucks is too many. We talk about this a lot when it comes to value and sacking. He's got 3 or 4 in his lineup tonight. What are you thinking?
Max 4 is good because like this is one of those situations where you're basically, if you're playing 4, you're playing Giannis, Middleton.
Yeah.
And then you're
Jackson,
playing two of Jackson, Beauchamp, Beaslly, or Connaughton.
So on FanDuel tonight, Bobby Portis is getting 40% rostership.
Yeah.
He is $5,300. So if you're on FanDuel, you're locking in some Bobby Poe here this evening. On DraftKings, Bobby Portis is $5,400. He is only 13% rostered, though. What are you doing with Bobby Poe here tonight, James?
I mean, there's always the scenario that they play him more when guys are out. It had been when like Middleton's been missing time.
More wing forward rotation, right?
So this is kind of like new territory. We had no sample earlier in the year when Dame, because they missed those 2 games, but Middleton was also out. So like, there's not like any type of sample. And Jay Crowder played in those games too. Jay Crowder played like 30 minutes in those games. So like, again, another like kind of unknown. I don't think Portis' role changes all too much. So I haven't gotten to him all that much. But like, there's always a case for Bobby Portis in tournaments, right? If he gets going, he can have a 20-point double-double, and it wouldn't be surprising. But like, we haven't seen it in a little while. His minutes have been low 20s. So I haven't necessarily gotten there today.
Fritz, I think we're going Clarkson tonight on DraftKings.
Yep.
We like the scoring upside. I know Sexton's been pretty good, but Clarkson seemingly has shown a bit of a higher minutes in scoring ceiling when he's been getting going. So we're gonna rock Clarkson here tonight over on
lower own too.
Yeah.
Sexton's definitely getting some love, and Utah in general is getting ownership. Dunn, Sexton, Clarkson all getting some ownership, but I definitely lean Clarkson.
Kuzma is $7,500. We've talked about pricing decreases. Kuzma has been cheapest betting all season and close to it since the beginning of the year. Last time he was this cheap. Price is obviously coming down, and we talked about it. In games where he has been competitive, getting 30-plus minutes, he's been putting out some pretty big performances. 32 minutes in a 16-point loss, 35 fantasy points, but now that he's 7,500, that's closer to 5X. But 34 minutes here, he gave you 58. 31 minutes, he gave you 42. So 37 minutes against Portland, he got 53. 29 against Sacramento, he gave you 40. So it has a ceiling. If Washington is to keep this one in the ballpark tonight, Kuzma could be paying off big time.
Yeah, I think everything you said, spot on. If Kuzma's making shots and keeping this game competitive, if Kuzma's making shots, this game can be competitive. If it's not competitive, you're drawing dead with Kuzma in your lineup because he's low owned and he's not going to play more than 25 minutes.
Right. If it's competitive, it's most likely because he's
Yes.
also hitting shots early. So
Correct.
keeping him on the floor. Where are you with Horford, Jabari Smith, Denny? Any group here?
I haven't necessarily gotten to Horford. I think he's a better price on FanDuel. That's where I'd probably get my exposure. I think there's more upside on FanDuel anyway for Horford, just given the defensive stats he still can accrue. I mean, 6 blocks and steals 2 games ago, 3 blocks and steals last game. 6,600 is a little too pricey for me. He's 0.85 fantasy point per minute guy this year without Tatum. There's not like a bump. Everyone else gets a bump. Horford really hasn't seen any of that. That's different when Porzingis is off the floor, but Porzingis is in. I do like Jabari Smith in tournaments. The minutes are very, very secure when Tari Eason's not around, and when Dylan Brooks is not around, they just don't really have the luxury to take Jabari Smith off the floor. As we saw, 40 minutes on the second leg of a back-to-back. He fell 1 rebound short in Minnesota, or he'd be coming off back-to-back double-doubles. He's been super consistent lately, so I like Jabari Smith at 66 in tournaments. And that's really it. I think this is the worst position on the board after the aforementioned names because, I mean, like, Fontecchio and Collins are obviously here. You can play them. You have the Indiana guys now at full strength. Who the hell knows who's going to play any minutes? Pat Connaughton is small forward, power forward, 3,800. Played 20 minutes 2 games ago, then 19. Or his minutes last just games in general. 19, 28, 14, 24. Like, is Connaughton in the rotation? Is he not? And the fantasy production really has been very, very low because he hasn't really made shots like he has in the past this year. So I have little to no interest. The only other value is someone you already talked about, O'Shea Brissett, would be like the only other guy I would get to down here. This is a pretty gross position, pretty gross value tier as well.
Let's go on over to center. We can play Giannis at center. We talked about that when we built our lineups last night, kind of looking at that, this grouping here. You have Bam at 88. You have Şengün at 85 going up against one another. Doesn't make that all that appealing. Honestly, you can play Porzingis at center. We certainly like that position. Chet Holmgren against Washington at $7,700. You now have Vucevic with a minutes increase at $7,500. Nurkic against the Clippers. Can't play Drummond anymore, knowing that Vuk is going to get the minutes. What are we doing at the top half of the center position?
So Bam is fine. Really good matchup. Şengün is obviously a better offensive player than he is defensively. Chet, this is a ceiling spot for Chet, for sure. I mean, Washington's been horrible in every metric against centers at the rim, on the perimeter, rebounding. Like, it's just all bad. I mean, when your center rotation is Daniel Gafford and Mike Muscala, like, I'm not saying either are terrible players, but they're very deficient in defense.
Right. Like, if they throw Gafford down there, doesn't it feel like there's a chance for a ceiling block game coming out of Chet here?
Yeah, it does. And I really have toyed all day with the idea of getting the Chet Holmgren because I want exposure to this game. And there is going to be pops from OKC when you factor in. I mean, we've seen it time and time again when you're facing Washington. There's just ceiling game after ceiling game after ceiling game. The only thing you have to worry about with Chet is he going to be on the floor long enough for you to pay off a $7,700 price tag? It's the same thing with every other member of OKC today.
Right.
But I think there is a massive ceiling. I do like Vucevic minutes increase. We don't know what that is going to be, but it was 25 last game. He was out for 2 weeks. Could it be mid-30s, full go? Like, possibly. It very well could be. So I like Vooch here. Kind of in tournaments. Can't obviously trust him in cash. Nurk is coming off an absolute monster game last night. If you do want exposure here in this game, like, he's obviously has this in the bag. I don't think, he's going to have a lot of 17 shot games when Beal, Booker, and Durant are all active, but we did see it last night. So is it potentially on the cards again? Yeah. I mean, him and Zubats are like, I feel like him and Zubats, one of them could have monster games tonight because they're both coming off monster games last night. Zubats had 22 and 19 last night and played 37 minutes. But I was looking through Zubac's minutes on back-to-backs. They have not been good. And I don't know if that's just been a product of some of them were blowouts. They do want to limit his minutes on a back-to-back. He can't handle it on a back-to-back, but it has not been good. If one of them pops, it wouldn't surprise me if you wanted late exposure, but you're right. I think center sucks. Walker Kessler's getting ownership because we never know kind of when his minutes are going to be there. And this price is not something we have seen in a little while, and we know the ceiling, but there's nothing else that really is.
Yeah, we liked the Indiana guys, and now everybody's in. So what does that mean for top end and Neesmith and Jalen Smith and all those guys and Jackson and everybody, right?
It's gross. It's gross. The whole rotation is gross. I have excommunicated everyone other than Tyrese Halliburton from my player pool today, and if that bites me, so be it. But who can you definitively sit here and say is going to play legitimate run? For Indiana, Here's another question: how many people in Indiana play over 30 minutes tonight? If you exclude Tyrese Halliburton,
right?
Exclude Tyrese Halliburton and tell me one guy that you know is going to play 30 minutes.
I don't know anybody.
Dude,
Bruce Brown.
Bruce Brown, right? Bruce Brown would probably be the best guess, and then your next best guess is Miles Turner, but he's always in foul trouble. So how do you? It's all bad for Indiana. It's all bad. It's all something that I don't even want to deal with. And you look at their ownership too. It's the field feels the same way. No one's playing Indiana because nobody knows who to play.
Right. Yep. No, I agree with you 100% there. Let's get a lineup build. What do you? Where are we starting things tonight? Obviously Giannis, but is he our center or our power forward?
Well, let's use him at center.
Okay.
Because we can play Fontecchio here if we wanted to at power forward, or we could play Collins.
We're doing Clarkson for sure, right?
Yeah, Clarkson for sure.
And Middleton.
Yep, and Jackson. We're gonna need that super cheap value. So Andre Jackson, you could play him either at forward or guard.
Middleton, small forward, Fontecchio.
Great stacking this game. Love it.
All right, already in. All right, so now we got 5,700. What Celtic do we play?
So whatever Celtic we want is really obviously White's
the cheapest.
Well, Holidays and White are the cheapest, and then Porzingis and Brown. Brown has the best eligibility. Singer has the most fantasy point upside, probably just given what he's. I mean, at least per average, he's the highest average. Let's go Derek White at guard.
Okay,
you already knew that. You know me also all too well. Do we want to go more Milwaukee? I mean, again, I said I would play Max
we'd go 4. What would be your 4 here? Beauchamp?
Beauchamp would be my 4th. I think Jackson, we have 3 starters. Beauchamp probably comes off the bench. And then we have a 6K util.
Would you run both Sexton and Clarkson out there?
I am not against full game stacking if that is where our lineup.
3 Utah, 4 Milwaukee, and a 1 off Derek White.
I'm not fully against full stacking this game. I mean, look, it's a very appealing game. It's 8.5, obviously the spread, but we've talked about it a lot with Milwaukee. They do not blow a lot of teams out, and they are obviously in the middle of a rut right now. 242.5 game total, one of 3 games with 240 plus on the docket. So I'm not against it. Not against it at all.
Okay. Well, there's an example on it for everybody then. Grande's got the playbook. He'll have that all out and updated for you with all the latest news and happenings around the league. We'll be in the Discord, obviously. Roster lock at 7 o'clock here this evening. Got to wait till 10:30 for the late night hammer. 2.5 hours after the 8 p.m. games kick off there. We will have the preview show here for tomorrow's slate. Weather issues may be pending on the live show here. We got some bad weather coming up the East Coast that may be impacting us over the next couple of days. So be on the lookout for any news and updates in the Discord as to whether or not we're going to be able to go live. We may not have power. So if we have no power, we can't go live, but we'll be updating you all that as we can throughout the day in the Discord. So make sure you go over there to fantasyarm.com, become a member of the Fantasy Arm family, and get in our Discord today. But for now, everybody, good luck on tonight's slate, and we will catch you all later.